Hello, I am that Rob Human, and this is part 10 of my Tabletop Playground mod development series. In this episode, we're going to discuss libraries or utility objects, systems that you might develop that are intended for other people to utilize as components in their mod. So when it comes to that, there's kind of three different paradigms of how you can build libraries or template objects or utility objects for other people to utilize. I'm going to cover two of them. I'll touch on the third one, but the third one is more related to scripting, so we're going to push that down the line a little bit and deal with that at a later time. So the first two paradigms here are standalone, what I kind of refer to as standalone utility libraries, and bootstrap or component libraries. I mentioned this in part 5B, 4B, I can't remember which one. The one where I talk about the dice, or the episode after I talk about dice. The example that I gave there is the bootstrap type, where it's you can copy an object from the mod without importing the entire mod. The other type is you need to use the type as a dependency for your mod. So we'll cover the first one first, even though I just went in reverse order in explaining how some of them work. We'll go for the standalone utility mod first. To do that, I'm going to go into our editor, and we're going to open up our tutorial series mod as per usual, and let's assume for a sec that we have all our components already made, and we want to we found a really cool mod. And by really cool I mean I made it for other people to use, so it's cool by dint that I made it. We suppose for a second we've created all our components for our game, and we're about to set up the initial starting state for our game. And I will actually be covering on how to build a starting state in a later tutorial, but for now we're just gonna start with as though we were laying out our components for our initial start state. So like 3 players, and they each get their own crate, and or something, right? So we've got this initial really boring state, and let's say that your game needs an hourglass, which happens to be the mod that I developed and will be using as this example. Not at all contrived. So I'm actually going to go into the object library. I'm going to add a package, and these are all the packages that I'm subscribed to, and we're going to use the timer and just hit add selected package. And we can return to the library, and you'll see the hourglass object here, and we can just slap it onto the table. And that's our hourglass. And now when you distribute this mod, and say this is your starting state, the timer utility mod that I made will be a dependency of your mod, and Tabletop Playground will actually handle a lot of the downloads or whatnot. It might flag and be like, hey, you need to subscribe to all these dependencies too. I think that's a consent thing, which that's valid, that makes sense, but like it's good to have those. The thing about these kinds of utilities is, I kind of alluded to it when I talked about it before in the previous episode, is there's a reason why these are standalone mods that you have to import as a dependency, and that has to do with scripting. I'm going to actually go into the scripting thing for this, and this is the project that I keep all of the utility stuff that I have, and you'll see this is the hourglass, and it imports a bunch of stuff. Some of it is local to this package, so like these things are imported from this types file, and some of it is actually imported from other dependencies in the package JSON. So like my JSX and TTPG, or my UI utilities, or my own utils API for this. It has dependencies that are within the scripts themselves. When we get to the second type of library paradigm, you'll see that when you copy an asset from another mod, it does copy all the direct dependencies. So like it'll copy the textures that are referenced in the template, or the models that are referenced in the template, and even the script. So like if I actually were to run this in development mode, let me go into this. I'm just gonna, what is this? Timer. I don't know why I'm on secretary. Timer. PNPN dev. I'm just going to build this real quick just to kind of illustrate how this works. The scripts are still importing other scripts, right? And so when you copy an asset from a library without using the object library mechanism, this whole add a package, when you're doing it the other way, it will import only the script that is referenced directly. So the object template, do I have it somewhere? Yeah, the template. That's the hourglass, right? So the script name, hourglass.js. Well, there it is. It will only import this script. It will not import any other dependencies. It cannot. It's a limitation of how the stuff gets parsed. It's an understandable limitation. But that can throw a wobbly into the second paradigm mode, which I'll finally now explain. The other option you can do here is if you go into your package, you can actually copy objects from another package. Now, this is what I mean. If I were to do this with the hourglass and copy it and hit save and do it this way, go into it, and see, create a state and direct my version of it, it doesn't work. In fact, it probably threw, a whole bunch of errors, and that's because it doesn't have the dependencies. So standalone mods need to be imported by way of the add packages mechanism. Circling back to the other paradigm, the second paradigm is you can copy some objects from another package if that library is designed to do that. So the example that I'm going to use here is the dice. The dice actually are self-contained. They're just assets and templates and whatnot. So I'm going to import the D4 wedge. I'm going to copy that to my mod, save it, and go back. This can exist as a copy as part of my mod now. Like it has no scripting dependencies. If I go into the there's my models that it pulled from when I copied from another project. There's the textures. It pulled in all the dependencies that it needed, and it was designed to be copyable. So if you are in the market to, or if your intent is to create a library for other people to utilize, those are your two primary paradigms. Standalone or copyable. Standalone is generally because you need to use scripting. That's really the biggest cause to use a standalone mod that people need to import using the object library. If you're looking to have things where you're only copying one object, like this, like I just did here, the only real caveat with that is you need to namespace your assets. So like here I've got a directory that is at that Rob Human, and any asset that gets utilized by objects in this library will be contained within at that Rob Human / dice / whatever object. Same with the textures. And this is just to avoid collisions. So if they were to say, well, let's copy another one, right? So I'm going to go per chamfer to gem, and let's do, I don't know, the D6 conical. If I go back to my asset list, well, now all my stuff is namespaced within that Rob Human / dice. And it's all contained in that. So when I go to develop this mod, I'm going to put all of my textures and models and sounds and whatnot and templates. Doesn't have to be templates. Templates are fine. I'm going to put all of those in a namespace directory that has some guarantee of uniqueness, just to avoid naming collisions. At which point you can just upload like that, and there you go. I would take a look at the dice mod, all the dice, as a good example of how to do that. I think you can just subscribe to it and take a look at the contents, or just download it. You should be able to do that and take a look. And likewise for the timer mod. I think it's downloadable. If it's not, yell at me. But you should be able to just download the mod and take a look at how that works, and you'll see that in that instance I don't namespace anything, because packages are always isolated when they're imported as a package. So I'm pulling this here real quick just to illustrate how the dependencies work. Add selected package and hourglass, and I'm actually gonna save state. Oh right, because I haven't actually imported any objects from this mod. Okay. It's funny how that, yeah. 3, cool. Anyways, I'm gonna save this state. Tutorial series, test state 1. So now we've got our initial state, and the reason why I've done this is actually to pull this, there it is, teststate1.vts, which is just a JSON file, and you'll see that it actually has my trh utils timer as a dependency. This is a required package of this save state, as obviously is, the mod that it's part of. So namespacing isn't necessary if it's a standalone mod, but is absolutely necessary if your assets are intended to be copyable. So those are the two kind of paradigms. I'll touch on the third one, which basically is like a scripting library, in one of the later episodes when we get into more advanced scripting concepts. Probably end up releasing a library that we develop in this series as probably the 3rd or 4th episode of the scripting sub-series. So we'll get to that in a bit. If push comes to shove, we'll also probably develop our own standalone mod, like library mod, as a separate thing. And maybe we can even develop a set of copyable attributes. In fact, I had promised that I would develop some prefab tokens that people can copy over, so that might actually be a good way to do that, as kind of a replacement to my Bootstrap mod. So we might develop that on this series and see where that goes. But that's pretty much the 2-3 different paradigms of library asset development, kind of as an overview. So there you go. As always, good luck.